Hello and welcome to another video from the conscientious biologist, Ben Gallagher. This video is on photosynthesis. It's the first lesson in a sequence of 2 and it covers the process overview. It's suitable for GCSE level and I suggest you've watched the cell biology lessons before we start. Now, when studying photosynthesis, there's only really 5 key questions that you need to keep in mind. These are: what is the point of photosynthesis? How does the plant trap the sunlight? What are the main limiting factors that affect photosynthesis? How is the plant adapted to maximize photosynthesis? And how can you investigate photosynthesis? If you can answer just those 5 questions really clearly and with plenty of detail, you'll be able to get very high marks on your GCSE or indeed A level if you've studied it to that level. Let's start with the first one, with what's the point of photosynthesis. Now, a lot of people forget that this is just an energy conversion. So think about what you've studied in your physics lessons, how energy can change from one form to another. In photosynthesis, all the plant is doing is taking energy from the sunlight and trapping it in a chemical form that it can use in a variety of ways. Now, the most obvious way that a plant will use that glucose is to respire it to get the energy back out. All living things need to do respiration. But there's 2 other main ways that plants can use glucose. One is that they can store it. It can polymerize the glucose molecules and create starch, most of which gets stored in the roots of the plants. Or they can convert the glucose. One obvious way they can do that is convert it to oils and lipids, which is another form of storage. Or they can convert it into amino acids, which can be used in photosynthesis. But the key thing to remember is that photosynthesis is just an amazing way that a plant has evolved to take light and convert it into a solid form that can become a food that can be stored for future use. Now, the key part of your curriculum is how the plant does that. How does it trap the sunlight? So that's the key question that we're going to be looking at. So let's jump to that now. So photosynthesis is essentially a chemical reaction to create this glucose molecule that's going to trap the sunlight energy. So when sunlight comes down towards the plant needs to create this trap, this box that's going to hold the glucose. But that's not an easy reaction to do. So it needs a chemical catalyst. A catalyst is something that makes a reaction happen more easily. It lowers the activation energy. Now, the catalyst in photosynthesis is chlorophyll, which is found in the chloroplasts, of which there are many in cells in the leaf of the plants. You get chlorophyll throughout the plant. It's green in color and it's what makes plants green. Pretty much the only place that you don't find chlorophyll in the plant is in the roots, because they're underground where photosynthesis can't occur. Now, as we've said, the glucose is going to act like a cage to that energy. So the chlorophyll's got to be pretty powerful and be able to grab other atoms to build this cage. Now, those atoms have got to come from somewhere, and if you look at what glucose is as a biochemical, it contains 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, and 6 oxygen atoms. Now, you can get the carbon directly from the air. There's carbon dioxide in the air, and if you look at it, it's CO2. You've got the carbon atoms in there. Where can you get the hydrogen from? You can get it straight from water. Water is H2O. You notice both of those molecules contain oxygen, so that can provide all the oxygen that you need. Now, if we for a second here just try and address the balancing, and I know some of you will hate balancing equations, but if you look at how many carbons are required to make a glucose molecule, it's 6. Well, to get 6 carbons would require 6 carbon dioxide molecules, because you get 1 carbon per molecule. You need 12 hydrogens. To get the 12 hydrogens, you're going to need 6 water molecules, because you can get 2 hydrogens from each water molecule. Now, 6 carbon dioxides and 6 waters are more than enough to give you all the carbon and hydrogen you need for a glucose. But let's have a quick look at the oxygen situation. From 6 carbon dioxides, that's going to give you 12 oxygen atoms. 2 per molecule, 6 of them, 6 times 2, 12. 6 molecules of water will give you an additional 6 oxygen atoms. Now that's 18 in total. You only need 6, so you're going to have a bunch of oxygen left over, which completes our word equation. If we quickly calculate what we've got, we said we had 18 oxygens going in, we only need 6. That leaves 12 oxygen atoms left over. Oxygen can't be on its own, so what that means, you have 6 O2 molecules to take your 12 oxygens that you had left over. That's the photosynthesis equation and is the most important thing you need to have memorized. It will come up over and over and again in the exams, and you need to be able to answer questions on it. You need to be able to recall that equation. Now, a key thing about this reaction, and another key word for you, is that it is endothermic. That means it takes energy in, which should be pretty obvious because it's taking sunlight energy in and locking it up in a molecule of glucose. So if we jump back now to our key questions, we've already answered the first one. But the second one, how does the plant trap sunlight? We can now write a very brief answer in there. But of course, remember, brief answers will not be good enough in the exams. But how does the plant trap the sunlight? It uses a chemical catalyst called chlorophyll to build an energy cage molecule called glucose. It builds glucose from the carbon dioxide and the water. Now that's a very, very brief answer. You can put lots and lots more detail onto that when you answer it in the exams. Let's very, very quickly look at the third question, which will be the final one that we answer in this presentation. But it's what are the main limiting factors that affect photosynthesis? We're only going to do this very, very briefly. You need to go to your textbooks to examine this to get more detail. But it should be fairly obvious that the main things that are going to affect photosynthesis will be temperature. That affects all chemical reactions because with increased temperature, you're giving more energy to the molecules, meaning they can move around faster and you're going to increase the rate of collisions. If you want to know more on that, look at one of my videos on collision theory. It gives you some background to that. Obviously, temperature can't continue to increase photosynthesis because in the same way as enzymes do, chlorophyll's a protein and it's going to denature, lose its shape and not be able to photosynthesize. Maximum photosynthesis is going to be achieved at the optimum temperature for whatever that plant you're looking at. Carbon dioxide and water availability will be the next two key limiting factors. Those are the two things that are required for photosynthesis. If you limit either of them, you're lessening the reactants. You increase one of them, the reaction should increase until it's now limited by the other one. You increase that one and the reaction can increase again until it becomes limited by this one. So either one is a limiting factor if the other one is in excess. The next limiting factor would be the quantity of chlorophyll. A plant can only photosynthesize at its maximum when all of its chlorophyll is being used. That's very rare that that's going to happen. But if you've got a plant with very little chlorophyll, it's not going to be able to photosynthesize very much. Think about when the leaves change color in the autumn. As they go less green, they're going to be able to do less photosynthesis because they're losing their chlorophyll. And the last limiting factor should be obvious. It's sunlight. On a brighter, sunnier day, you're going to have increased sunlight. We'll answer the remaining two questions on the next presentation. Which is Photosynthesis 2, Plant Physiology. Thanks for watching.